Ladies and gentlemen, UCLA's 46th Annual Commencement Convocation is assembled. Dan Newfield, candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Music, will lead us in the singing of our national anthem. Please remain standing for the invocation to be delivered by the Reverend Gaylord Folday, President of the South Pacific District of the American Lutheran Church.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Let us join our hearts in prayer. Father in heaven, we pause in this moment to acknowledge Thee, the Creator and Redeemer of heaven and earth and all creation, the giver of all good and perfect gifts. Thou, O God, art Lord of all, and we thank Thee that Thou hast given to us, the sons of men, the ability and means within Thy creation to seek wisdom and pursue it, that Thou hast permitted doors of knowledge and understanding to be opened so the lives of all mankind might be enriched. Forgive us, Father, when we have used Thy gifts otherwise than for the welfare of all men. Now today we pray that Thou would look with mercy on these who have achieved and are now to be honored. Give to them the gifts of humility in Thy presence and the spirit of compassion and concern in the use of that which they now have received. Be pleased to bless us, O God, both now and unto eternity, through Thy Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
The audience may now be seated.
On behalf of the UCLA family, I welcome you to this auspicious, and I might add, earned occasion. First, it is my pleasure to introduce the members of the university's Board of Regents who are with us today. Please hold your recognition until all the regents have been introduced. Regent Edwin W Poly, Regent Edward W Carter, Regent Dorothy B Chandler, Regent John E Cannaday, Regent Philip L Boyd, Regent William E Forbes, Regent W Thomas Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, the members of the Board of Regents who are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, as a matter, I guess you might say, of personal privilege, but one which I think will be accepted by all present, I should like to add a somewhat unprecedented note to our otherwise well-calculated program for today. For we are honored today by the presence of one of the nation's most dedicated and accomplished educators, Dr. Arthur Coons, who retires this year as president of Occidental College, a post he has held for over 20 years. Dr. Coons has served higher education well, and we are proud that his first teaching position in California was at UCLA in 1924. One of his most distinguished accomplishments was serving as economic advisor to the United States Reparations Mission to Japan in 1945 and 1946. It is especially appropriate that we mention this today because the chief of that mission was another man dedicated to education, Edwin W Poly. But Californians will probably remember Dr. Coons best as the architect of the state's historic master plan for higher education, which is a model for several other states, many other states and nations. We wanted to pay special tribute to this extraordinary man and his great work for this state and for the nation. We had given him the privilege at one time of being a member of this faculty. The university had already conferred upon him the honorary degree, and it seemed to me that the most and the least we could do was to introduce to this great audience, in the year of his retirement, a man of extraordinary and uncommon achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our most distinguished colleagues in the vineyards of education, Dr. Arthur Coons. These 1965 commencement exercises constitute the first event to be carried out in our new UCLA Memorial Activity Center. Two of the three buildings of the complex are, as you can see, almost entirely completed. The third structure and the landscaping of the plaza between the three buildings must wait upon the removal of the running track, which we hope will not be more than 2 years away. This complex of buildings will provide a much-needed, flexible, multi-purpose resource for a variety of academic, cultural, and athletic activities. These activities will involve all segments of the UCLA family, students, faculty, alumni, and friends. And it is therefore not without significance that the resources to build it have come from all segments of the family, especially students, alumni, and friends, with, of course, a substantial contribution by the state of California. I should add that Mr. Welton Beckett, the distinguished architect of this building, is responsible for its beauty as well as its utility, and I should like to have Mr. Beckett stand at this time. Today we dedicate the central building of the complex, the Edwin W Poly Pavilion, and it is entirely appropriate that the dedication relate itself to perhaps the most important ceremonial event in the life of the university, the Commencement Exercises. And now I should like to introduce for a brief comment Mr. Jeffrey E. Donfeld, President of the Associated Students at UCLA during the year past, candidate for bachelor's degree in letters and science, majoring in political science on his way to law school. Distinguished and effective president of the undergraduate student body and a great good friend, Jeff Donfeld.
Dr. Murphy, members of the official party, fellow graduates, ladies and gentlemen, as one of America's youngest major institutions, UCLA has had the problem of building almost overnight resources long available to older, well-established universities. For example, it has long been the wish of the UCLA community to bring athletics back onto the campus where they most appropriately belong. Now, as all present can readily see, UCLA has a beautiful new home, not only for championship basketball, but for many other sports, intercollegiate as well as intramural. This structure will also serve our university in the very important academic and cultural pursuits. On behalf of the undergraduate student body, I wish to express our very deep appreciation to Mr. Edwin W Poly for the very central role which he has played in making all of this possible.
I should now like to introduce the president during the year past of the Graduate Student Association, Mr. Arnold York, who earned his Bachelor of Law degree in January of this year. And I should like to add the personal note that during what has come to be called within the university statewide system the time of the Troubles, it is to Arnold York and Jeff Donfeld that this administration looked precisely and with great confidence. Our confidence was not displaced. They carried out their leadership responsibility within the student body remarkably, and at this time and in introducing Arnold and Jeff, I want to express my deep appreciation, and I believe that of the entire UCLA family, for their extraordinary sense of exerted responsibility. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Arnold York.
Thank you, Chancellor Murphy, members of the official party, ladies and gentlemen. The graduate students, who are an ever-growing segment of the student body at UCLA, are well aware of the important role which the Memorial Activities Center, and especially the Poly Pavilion, will play in the continuing development of this campus community. This new resource will not only provide for on-campus athletic activities, but will make possible the mounting of many important academic, cultural, and public service events at UCLA, which were not possible in the past because of the lack of an appropriate facility. I wish to express to Mr. Poly the gratitude of the graduate students for his crucial and generous support, which has made possible this great multi-purpose pavilion. Thank you.
Next, ladies and gentlemen, I should like to introduce to you Mr. W. Thomas Davis, President of the UCLA Alumni Association these 2 years past, a graduate of this university in 1931 and of Bolt Hall in Berkeley in law subsequently. As President of the Alumni Association for these last 2 years, he has served as an ex officio member of the Board of Regents. Beyond that, however, this Memorial Activities Center and this central pavilion have really been a dream of his from the very beginning. And I think it is fair to say that he has been, if not the most central, certainly one of the most central figures in bringing all of the forces together which have made this possible. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. W. Thomas Davis.
As we see, two of the buildings of the Memorial Activities Center stand completed today, and the funds for the third one have been allocated through the loyalty, dedication, and generosity of 3,000 alumni and friends of UCLA who have contributed in excess of $2,260,000. Now, it's impossible to name everyone who helped make this center a reality. However, I would like to mention the committee chairman, John Vaughn, chairman of the Evaluation and Planning Committee, Regent William Forbes, chairman of the original Public Relations Committee, Bob Altshuler and Bob Haldeman, chairman of the Campaign Committee, Phil Davis, Major Gifts Committee, Matt Goodstein, Special Gifts Committee, Jim Gessner, Founders Committee chairman, and of course Doug Kinsey was the director of the campaign. Though not an alumni, two of UCLA's most loyal friends are Mr. and Mrs. Edwin Poly, whose matching gift of $1 million stimulated the MAC campaign and made it possible not only to reach, but to exceed its goal. Mr. and Mrs. Poly, the donors who are here, and there are quite a few of them here, and all donors and workers, the alumni and students of UCLA wish to thank you for your generous contributions of both time and money.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I should like to introduce one of the major figures within the recent history of the University of California. This is a gentleman who spent 1 year in Occidental College. Why and how he may explain a bit later, other Arthur than the fact that it's a first-rate institution. He enrolled in Berkeley the next year and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in 1922 and a Master of Science degree at Berkeley in 1923. He has been a regent of the University of California, serving longer than any other appointed regent. He has served on the board since 1938 and has also served 2-year terms as chairman of the board of regents of the university. He serves as a trustee of Occidental College as well. In addition to his successful business life, he is one of the most philanthropic citizens in this community, having contributed of his means as well as time to many educational institutions and cultural activities as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I should like to introduce to you one of the great good friends of this institution, Mr. Edwin W. Poly.
Thank you, Chancellor Murphy, fellow regents, distinguished faculty, students, ladies and gentlemen. This is indeed a great thrill for me and for my family. I am not only thrilled by the spectacle here and the utility of this great place, but I'm thrilled over the effort of the alumni in putting this together. I think this is the first time that the alumni of UCLA really knew their own strength and knew each and every member among themselves. And to get them united gave me a triple thrill. Now, I've told this story before, but it was mentioned by Chancellor Murphy. I started out for Pasadena for UCLA in an old Model T Ford, but it broke down several times near Eagle Rock. So I enrolled in Occidental College instead. And I went there, not 1 year, but 2 years, and there were two of the happiest years of my life, and I think there are two that were very, very well spent. Later, I went to Berkeley, where I received my degree, and where, I might add, Mrs. Poly received hers as well. Except for a faculty car, I might have been a UCLA graduate. However, during my long years as a member of the Board of Regents and a citizen of Los Angeles, I have certainly become a UCLA alumnus and an admirer in spirit, and of course, the official record will speak for itself. Mrs. Poly and I are extremely pleased that we have been able to participate in bringing into fruition this long-time dream of the Memorial Activity Center. We're especially happy that it will serve so many important facets in the necessarily expanding campus activities. Academic ceremonies such as this today, intercollegiate athletics, intramural sports, public lectures, music concerts, and art exhibits, it's truly multi-purpose. No one anywhere has watched with more pride in the growth of the academic distinction and the physical development of this campus than I. I've long since been convinced that this already great institution is destined in a shorter time than anyone thought possible to become one of the greatest, if not the greatest, university in the world. Thank you.
Each year, a speaker is selected to represent his fellow graduating seniors on the basis of scholarship and participation in the undergraduate life of the campus. The young man who will presently address you has been influential in a great many worthy campus projects, has been cited for many campus honors, and considers his career at UCLA the most exciting 4 years of his life to date. The area in which he found abundant satisfaction, however, was active participation last summer in the Policy Planning Council of the State Department, a group of 35 students selected from 265 colleges and universities in every part of the United States to serve as interns in Washington. This activity helped to whet his appetite for a career in politics and public administration. Although leaving UCLA today, he will continue his education in September at the Woodrow Wilson School in Princeton University, studying for his master's degree, and after that expects to obtain a degree in law. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Stephen E. Haberfeld, candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Economics.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chancellor. We are living in a dynamic world of change, and the future appears before us as an invitation and a challenge to play a vital role in that world. As university students, we have studied with great interest the last 30 years of our nation's history as a period in which there have been manifest indications that our self-image as a nation has not been consonant with the realities of American life. Among the more explicit demonstrations of this apparent gap between our ideals and our practices as a people have been the questions
of full employment, poverty in the midst of plenty, and the guarantee of equality of opportunity and full political rights for all citizens. Within the last 3 years, we have witnessed a great reawakening of concern with these vital issues which confront our society. And the spark, which has reignited this flame of concern in our nation's leadership and in a major part of the public, has been provided by our colleges and universities. The university has always occupied a unique place in our civilization, for it is at once both a part of and distinct from the society which it serves. The university is an island of awareness in a sea of general self-complacency resulting from our ever-increasing prosperity. It is the center of intellectual concern, calling attention to grave social problems which might otherwise go unnoticed or be swept under the proverbial rug. It is one of the primary functions of the university to resist an uncritical acceptance of the status quo and to instill in its students a universal spirit of unrestrained inquiry. Thus, the student feels that he is not, by definition, committed to the established order. Having been imbued with society's goals and ideals, but not yet subjected to the requirements of full integration into the standing order, the student can therefore look out at the world and see the deficiencies and the compromises that have been made in the name of stability and order. But with all the social problems of our time pressing for needed attention and action, it is much too easy and more popular for the university student to adopt not only the role of critic, but also that of agitator, advocating simple solutions to complex problems and using methods not always in the best interests of society. It is incumbent upon us, as university students and now as graduates, to choose the more difficult, perhaps less popular, but more challenging road of responsible civic action. We as students and as citizens must not ever lose the basic value orientations and goals which the university has given to us. We must not allow ourselves to be unconsciously swept up in the easy stream of apathy and complacency, nor must we allow ourselves to blindly follow leaders advocating change for its own sake. But we must be ever vigilant to potential and real social ills and work as members of our society for its betterment, lest we be forced to pay the much higher price of violence and revolt. We are living in a dynamic world of change. It has been said that naught endures but change. However, change is one thing, and progress is another. Change is scientific, and progress is ethical. Change is indubitable, and progress may be a matter of controversy. The art of progress is to preserve order amid change and to preserve change amid order.
Traditionally, a graduate student is selected to represent those upon whom we confer advanced degrees. Scott Littleton completed his doctoral program in January, earning the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Anthropology. Now an assistant professor at our sister institution, Occidental College, he is considered by those who know him well to be idealistic, never at a loss for words, and knowledgeable about politics. One professor on our campus describes Scott Littleton as, quote, the best teaching assistant I ever had, the kind I always hoped for, but never had until he turned up, unquote. This young man is a product of California education. He came to UCLA from El Camino College and earned his bachelor and master's degrees on this campus, as well as his PhD. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present Dr. Covington Scott Littleton, Doctor of Philosophy in Anthropology.
Thank you, Chancellor Murphy. Before I get into the remarks which I have prepared, I'd like to ad lib a little bit. I would like to take this opportunity to add just a word of my own, of tribute to Dr. Arthur Coons. Again, Dr. Coons, a member of your faculty here, also salutes you. Thank you. When I was asked some weeks ago to make this presentation to speak on behalf of all those who are now receiving or who have recently received advanced degrees, my initial response was, why me? Why should an anthropologist be entrusted with a duty that could be carried out equally well by a physicist, a historian, or a political scientist, to name but a few? Yet upon second thought, it occurs to me that if indeed one must choose one discipline as representative of all others honored here today, anthropology is perhaps the most logical choice. For my discipline, thank you. For my discipline cuts across several academic boundaries. It's concerned with the physical evolution of our species and with techniques by which to date that evolution brings it into close association with the biological and physical sciences. It's concerned with human behavior, qualifies it as a social science, and its concern with myth and traditional literature impinges upon the domain of the humanists. Thus, although of necessity I speak today as one who has recently earned a doctorate in anthropology, I think I can also presume, perhaps in a very small degree, to speak on behalf of all of my fellow recipients. The obtaining of an advanced degree is not an easy task, nor should it be. Most, if not all of us here today, have invested more years than we would care to admit in the accomplishment of this task. We have, presumably, acquired skills, knowledge, and a high degree of critical acumen. We have engaged in research which, hopefully, will shed light of varying degrees of intensity upon heretofore unilluminated aspects of our respective disciplines. And today, we receive, in the form of an academic degree, the accolade of our masters. In short, from this day hence, we shall be professional colleagues rather than fellow graduate students. Yet for many of us, and I speak as one who has taught at a liberal arts college for the past 3 years, the degrees we now possess will become ends in themselves, passports to security in our chosen profession, be it teaching or research. To be sure, most of us will keep abreast of new developments in our several fields of knowledge and will publish the required number of articles and papers depending upon the demands of our respective employers. But all too many of us will seek the safe, already well-marked paths rather than the uncharted byways. Our choice of research projects will tend to be dictated by immediate, pragmatic considerations rather than by their relative promise of providing meaningful solutions to basic theoretical problems. In the name of orthodoxy, or scholarly rigor, as many call it, many of us will elevate means over ends, stopping short of any investigation that does not promise quick and neatly ordered results. The immediate effect upon the career will come to outweigh the long-term contribution to knowledge. Evidence of these unfortunate tendencies can be seen on all too many pages of our respective scholarly journals. But as I see it, we, as possessors of advanced degrees, have come into a wonderful inheritance, an inheritance resulting largely from the efforts of those who did indeed venture beyond the realm of the safe, the trivial, the immediate, and the orthodox. We are, for example, heirs to the efforts of Giordano Bruno, who, because he chose to follow the path of Copernicus rather than that of Ptolemy, suffered the extreme penalty at the hands of the Inquisition. We are heirs to the efforts of Semmelweis, who, simply because he suggested that his fellow physicians wash their hands before delivering babies, was all but drummed out of the Austrian medical fraternity. More recently, we have become heirs to the efforts of Franz Boas, who, as a scientist, spoke out against the fallacy of racial discrimination and prejudice at a time when such pronouncements were not the order of the day. And as a consequence, he was one of the first witnesses to be called before the First House Un-American Activities Committee. Few, if any, of those upon whom we as scholars depend for our fundamental theories and orientations weighed potential avenues of research in terms of the extent to which they would produce the requisite number of safe scholarly papers and thereby facilitate the gaining of academic tenure or its equivalent. I do not mean to suggest that we should necessarily aspire to martyrdom, far from it. But what I do mean to suggest is that we should here resolve never to betray our intellectual inheritance. Let us resolve never to turn aside from any path toward truth out of fear that it may lead to unorthodox or unpopular results. When all is said and done, let us so conduct ourselves as scholars that no man can say of us that we were willing accessories to the triumph of triviality. Thank you.
The ceremonies attendant upon the administration of the oath of office to the regular and reserve officers in the United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force will now take place.
The officer candidates will please rise.
We are honored today by the presence of Lieutenant General Charles B. Stone III, United States Air Force retired, who has had a distinguished career in the service of the United States. General Stone, I am proud to present our candidates for commission in the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force of the United States.
Officer candidates, you are about to take a solemn oath in the interest of our country and all of us here today. Will you please raise your right hand and repeat after me the oath for officer candidates, Armed Forces. I, and state your full name, having been appointed an officer in the Armed Forces, do accept such appointment and do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. Gentlemen, I want to congratulate you on this assumption of your duties, and I wish you success in this most important public undertaking.
The graduate degrees will now be conferred.
At UCLA, graduate degrees are the Master of Arts, the Master of Business Administration, the Master of Comparative Law, the Master of Education, the Master of Engineering, the Master of Fine Arts, the Master of Library Science, the Master of Public Administration, the Master of Public Health, the Master of Science, the Master of Social Welfare, the Bachelor of Laws, the Doctor of Education, the Doctor of Medicine, the Doctor of Public Health, and the Doctor of Philosophy.
The candidates for the degree Master of Arts will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor Horace Magoon, Dean of the Graduate Division.
Mr. Chancellor, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Arts.
The candidates for the degree Master of Business Administration will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor George Robbins, Acting Dean of the School of Business Administration.
Mr. Chancellor, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Business Administration.
The candidates for the degree Master of Comparative Law will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor Richard Maxwell, Dean of the School of Law.
Mr. Chancellor, I present the candidate for the degree Master of Comparative Law.
The candidates for the degree Master of Education will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor Howard Wilson, Dean of the School of Education.
Chancellor, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Education.
The candidates for the degree Master of Engineering will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor L.M.K. Belter, Dean of the College of Engineering.
Chancellor Murphy, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Engineering.
The candidates for the degree Master of Fine Arts will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor William W. Melnitz, Dean of the College of Fine Arts.
Mr. Chancellor, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Fine Arts.
The candidates for the degree Master of Science will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Dean Magoon.
Chancellor, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Science.
The candidates for the degree Master of Social Welfare will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor Eileen A. Blackie, Dean of the School of Social Welfare.
Chancellor, I present the candidates for the degree Master of Social Welfare.
The candidates for the degree Master of Public Health will please rise and remain standing. The candidates will be presented by Professor Lenore S. Gerke, Dean of the School of Public Health.
Mr. Chancellor, I'm pleased to present the candidates for the degree of Master of Public Health.